in Acts 15, the things that the true followers of Yeshua say to the Gentiles that they need to do to begin their walk of salvation and sanctification is to abstain from the pollutions of idols, abstain from fornication, from things strangled, and from blood. Okay? And this is contrary to the certain men in this chapter that are trying to say the Gentiles must start keeping sacrificial law and be circumcised, which we know also in 1 Corinthians 7:19 that circumcision is nothing and uncircumcision is nothing, but the keeping of the commandments of God is how you have a circumcised heart. Right, so that's the same message of what they're saying here, is you don't need to go start wearing tzitzits. You don't need to go back to the sacrificial law that was against us. It was contrary to us. It was added for transgressions until the promised seed would come and finish it, and that was Yeshua. Right, and that's what Galatians is about, and John 19:30, Yeshua is quoting Deuteronomy 31:24-26, right? So saying, nah, these guys don't have to keep sacrificial law. They simply need to keep the two covenants of promise, right? Because abstaining from idols and abstaining from fornication are things in the Ten Commandments, which is the Holy Covenant, and abstaining from things strangled, which would be eating the blood, and abstaining from blood are things in the Rainbow Covenant. And they're saying, if you start doing these things, you'll do well, and you can go into the synagogue every Sabbath and listen to what Moses said about the Messiah being preached. Okay? So you have to not look at this at such a surface level, but like I said, these are things representing the two covenants of promise, the Holy Covenant and the Rainbow Covenant. The Holy Covenant being the Ten Commandments, the Rainbow Covenant being the covenant made with Noah to not eat unclean. Well, the covenant was really made with the whole world when everyone's breaking it. To not eat unclean and to not eat the blood. Okay? And not to, don't just, and also, it also means don't sleep with your menstruating wife either. So you see, abstain from pollution of idols. Well, that's commandment number 1 and 2. And no fornication would be like don't commit adultery or fornication against God, which is adultery. And they didn't list all the 10 commandments, but you get the ABC application here, right? So if you're telling me, if you ask someone, do you know your ABCs? You don't need to say, do you know A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, all the way through to Z. You say, do you know your ABCs? And they'll say yes or no. And you know that they're talking about, do they know the whole alphabet or not? Okay? So if I started saying, don't commit idolatry, don't have any other gods before me, don't covet, I list off a few of the 10 commandments, you're going to know I'm obviously talking about the 10 commandments in a whole. I'm not just saying, only keep 2 of the 10 commandments. And the same thing with the Rainbow Covenant. If I'm starting to imply to you, these things are part of the Rainbow Covenant, so start keeping these, I'm telling you, keep the whole Rainbow Covenant. And then you'll do well. It doesn't say that's the end of your faith. It says you'll do well, and you'll continue to go into synagogues on the Sabbath, and you'll hear what Moses said. So they would have gone in and learned Deuteronomy 18. Even though it wasn't Deuteronomy 18 at the time, but they would have learned in the Torah where the Messiah would have been written of and what he was prophesied to do, which is to come teach the 10 Commandments. And these guys that are at the Jerusalem Council telling the Gentiles what they need to do to be saved already knew what Moses said about the Messiah. They already were clued onto that, and you can tell that in Acts 3:19-26, because it's quoting Deuteronomy 18:15-19, and telling you that whoever does not listen to that prophet, that Messiah, will be destroyed from among the people. And that's what's going on today in your whole church. Everyone's rejected that Messiah, the Deuteronomy 18 prophet, because they ignore what the Messiah says in John 5, that if you would have believed Moses, you would have believed me. They don't even know where Moses wrote of the Messiah, let alone what it says, that he's going to come teach everything desired at Horeb, which is the 10 Commandments. Right? So you don't need to be circumcised. You don't need to start keeping sacrificial law. To be grafted into the Commonwealth of Israel, Ephesians 2:8-14, you start keeping the covenants of promise when you listen to the grace conviction that's upon you that helps you to repent and obey, as it's said in Titus 2:11 through 14. And then you start obeying the commandments as that Spirit of grace convicts you to do so and helps you to do so. And same goes with the Rainbow Covenant, to not eat unclean and to not eat the blood. All right? And then you receive the Spirit of truth, and then you can go teach others to do the same.